Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Career Development Workshop series. My name is Mariela Osario, and I am the Career and Small Business Services Specialist at the Long Branch Public Library. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have Nancy Robillard, and she will be presenting on Confident on Camera, How to Engage Your Virtual Audience. Now, I just want to remind everyone that today's conversation is being recorded. And I would also like to ask everyone to please mute your microphones until after Nancy's presentation. There will be plenty of opportunity for you to ask your questions or comments, and Nancy will be happy to answer that. So just please remember to mute your microphones. Now, I would like to introduce to you our guest speaker, Nancy Robillard. Bear with me one second. Nancy is a professional theater director who has worked on Broadway, off-Broadway, and in regional theater. She also works extensively as an educator and coach and has taught acting and public speaking at several colleges. In her work as a public speaking coach, she helps executives and their teams ensure their messages are clear and skillfully delivered by teaching theatrical techniques that powerfully engage audiences. Welcome, Nancy. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for that lovely introduction. So Mariela has shared with me that many of you joining us today are in a job search. And I read something very recently in Bloomberg that suggested that companies should make a virtual interviewing, remote interviewing, a permanent practice. And the idea behind that was it's much easier logistically for companies to arrange interviews, and it potentially saves money. So I would like today to give you some tips and techniques for becoming more confident on camera. Since the pandemic and people are on camera more and more, they're complaining about it. I get a lot of complaints from clients about just not feeling comfortable on camera, feeling self-conscious, feeling like they're in the spotlight. And to make it worse, now people are asked to make videos. If you're on LinkedIn, you're going to see more and more people are putting themselves on video. So the camera is here to stay, and you may never love being on camera, but we can give you some methods to prepare yourself before going on camera, and then techniques to employ while you're on camera. So I'm going to get ready to share my screen, and while I do that, I would just like you to open up the chat and let me know on average how many times a week do you appear on camera in a meeting or some other event? And Mariela, what kind of answers are we getting?
Okay. From Alina, 2 or 3. From Maria, 4 to 6 times. From Lisa, 3. That's all we have so far.
That's great. And for me, it's between 3 and 5. My week, every week is different. This week, it's probably closer to 5. All right, thank you for sharing that. So I'm going to start with methods you can employ to prepare before your event, whether it's an interview, a networking meeting. I'm just going to use the word event. And we're going to start with the technical elements. And the technical elements are your camera position, lighting, background, and sound. So let's start with the camera. When you prepare, first turn on your camera, and you want to make sure that your camera is at eye level. So that might mean you might take your laptop or whatever you're using, whatever device you're using, you may need to elevate it. So for example, my laptop is sitting on top of the New Yorker Encyclopedia of Cartoons, which is about this high. When you look at yourself in the camera, you want to make sure there isn't too much space over your head. So think of it this way. Your eyes, which are the focal point of your face, should be 2/3 of the way up from the bottom of the screen. And I say that because of the theory of the rule of thirds, which comes from painting. Before I talk about that, I do want to mention it's really important to locate where your camera is on your device. I also teach acting coaching in addition to public speaking coaching. And recently I was working with an actor. He was doing a monologue and we were going to record it. And he just wasn't looking right in the camera. He thought he was, but he had changed from his laptop to a different device and he thought he knew where the camera was. And so I said, is anybody else at home with you? He ended up calling his girlfriend into the room and she told him where the camera was. So if it's hard to locate, if it's hard to see, put a little sticker next to it so you can really, really see it, because it's important that you're looking into the camera and making eye contact. So I want to go on to why you want your eyes, which are the focal point of your face, to be 2/3 of the way up from the bottom of the screen. So the rule of thirds tells us if you're looking at a blank canvas, your eye is going to naturally gravitate toward the middle. But if you break up your canvas into thirds, horizontally and vertically, and you put one of your objects on one of those thirds, it actually creates a more dynamic experience for the viewer, because your brain has to do a little more work to move your gaze from the center of that canvas to one of the thirds. So just remember, rule of thirds. Lighting. Here's the thing about lighting. When lighting is bad, it's just distracting. When it's good, it's hardly noticeable. And so sometimes I like to give examples of what not to do. And this slide is just chock full of them. Almost no one in this slide has decent lighting. This guy, I can see his face, but for my taste, his background is a little bit dim. This guy's giving us a great example of what not to do. The brightest light in the room is behind him. So let's talk about some ways that you can improve your lighting. So you already have your camera on. Take a look. Can you be seen? Lighting does not have to be complicated. It can be really simple. You can use just what you have in your own home. If you're lucky enough to be near a window, natural light is beautiful. If you're using a lamp like this with a bare light bulb, rather than shining it right on your face, you want to bounce it either off the ceiling or off a wall, because that will diffuse the light and make it less harsh and give you a nice bounce effect like a photographer's bounce board would do. Now, when you place your lighting, you don't want it directly in front of you. It's really best if it's at a 45-degree angle off to the side. And the reason for that is if your lighting is at a 45-degree angle, it's going to produce a nice, subtle contouring that is just going to make the viewer's view of you more interesting. Again, like I said, I like to give examples of what not to do. So what this lady has here in the back is reflecting light, and that can be distracting for the viewer. So you're looking at your camera, check out your background. Is there anything distracting back there? Remove it. Is there anything that's reflecting light? Remove it. This photo is also reminding me of a webinar I attended recently, and the presenter had this very elegant background. It was white and very pale shades of gray and beige. And like this lady, she was wearing a cream-colored blouse and she was blonde. So she faded in to her background. So again, you're checking yourself out when you think about your wardrobe choices. Just make sure you stand out from your background. Now, this photo is professional actors, I must confess. And so they have their lighting all set up because that's what they do for a living. And they tend to favor very plain backgrounds because they want to stand out. But the reason I'm showing you this photo is this lady. And what I love about her background is that there's depth to it. So that she's not just against a blank wall. You can actually feel like you're in this room with her. And that's very refreshing when we're all sitting around looking at a screen all day and seeing people in front of a blank wall. If you can have some depth to your background, so much the better. You also want to locate where your microphone is on your device. And the only other thing I want to say about sound is you want to try to be in a room that has some soft goods in it. I'll explain what I mean. Usually when I'm working at my laptop, I'm in the dining room, which is wood floors, wood furniture, big windows, and it wouldn't be appropriate for me to present from there because the sound is a little bit echoey. So for today, I moved into another room where there's a rug on the floor and the sound is much better. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and I would love to hear some questions.
Yes, Nancy, that is the end of part one. And I would like to open it up for any questions or comments from the audience. So audience, please feel free to raise your hand. You can add your comments or questions in the chat or our Q&A. And actually, Nancy, having seen your slide presentation, I do have a couple of questions for you. Do I really need to invest a lot of money in lighting?
No, not at all. In fact, today I'm just using my household lighting. I wanted you to see that that could be done. I do have a dim, I'm not going to show it to you now, a dimmable LED that I use at night, but many people here might not need special lighting for nighttime. You can also just supplement what you have at home with something inexpensive from the hardware store, or maybe you just borrow a lamp from another room. I'm going to go back again to my acting coaching. I was helping an actor who didn't have his setup. He was in a hotel room. And so we had to spend a little bit of time figuring out, like, how are we going to get the lighting? Like I said, he didn't have his setup. And an interesting thing happened that I want to mention. He was using some light from a window, and I wanted just a little bit more light on his face. And I said, oh, how about you turn on that lamp next to you? And he did, and he turned orange. So it's important to be careful when you're mixing natural light and artificial light. So again, your camera is your best friend. You just check out, how do you look? And you do need to adjust for different times of day. So for example, this morning when I was getting ready for this presentation, I had different lighting. It was a gray day. Well, the sun came out, and so I was able to use less. But no, you do not have to invest at all.
Okay, we do have a couple of questions from the audience. Alina would like to know, oh, wait a minute. I want to start from the beginning. Lisa asks, what do you think of the fake background screens?
That is such a good question. It's a really good question. I will tell you, they provide a couple of challenges, virtual backgrounds. I can tell you why people like them. They like them because maybe they don't have a place in their home if they're working from home that's going to give them a nice background. I mean, I'm fortunate. I have the place to myself during the day. I can be anywhere. Not everyone has that luxury. They have kids in school. So a virtual background can give you a really professional looking look behind you. However, it's really important to use it with a green screen, because what a green screen is going to do, it's literally a green screen that you put behind you. What that is going to do is separate you from your background. Otherwise, if you don't have that separation, anytime you move, a little bit of your head's going to get cut off, a little bit of your shoulder's going to get cut off, and it looks unnatural. So that can be a little distracting for the viewer. So, I mean, I think it's important that everybody do the best they can. And we're not, you know, I'm not here to ask people to spend a lot of resources. But I do think that if you're going to use a virtual background, having a green screen is a really, really good thing to have. But I prefer a live background, partly because of what I was talking about earlier when I showed the slide of the woman in her office, is depth. It's nice to have a little depth. And even when you use a virtual background with a green screen, you're not going to have depth. So it's really kind of a matter of taste. It's like, do what you can do well. Okay. I know a lot of people like them. I mean, a lot of business people like them because they have their business logo.
Right, right. Next question comes from Alina. Are there any colors or patterns or lack of patterns that are best for clothing?
The only thing I will say about that is that you don't want to use a pattern that's too tiny and too busy. Because if a pattern is too tiny, it looks like it's moving. And that can be a little bit distracting for the viewer. But I think you have to know who your audience is. Who are you dressing for? And what would you wear if you were with them in person? I mean, if we're talking about a networking group, what is the tone of that group? What is their style? It's always better to be a little better dressed than the rest of them, because some people really, they think it's a year ago and they can be in their sweats all the time. But then if it's an interview, who are you meeting? And just what is the tone? Who's your audience? I think that's the most important. And you want to feel like yourself. What makes you feel good?
Question from Lisa. How do you train yourself to look at the camera and not at the other participants on the screen?
It's practice. I'm going to be talking a lot about that in part 2, but it's practice. Like for right now, I can see Mariella in my peripheral vision, and I can't see anybody else, but I can see her lovely, friendly face. But I'm talking to you. And really that's because of practice, and also because on my laptop, I have a bright light right next to the camera. So it's really easy to find. But if your camera is not easy to find, like my actor friend, you can put a little sparkly sticker or something next to your camera, something that will draw your eye there. I actually know another coach who gave a client a pair of googly eyes, those googly eyes, and this person stuck them up on either side of their camera. So part of it is tricking yourself and practice. And the more you practice, the less tempted you're going to be to look away.
Okay.
From the camera.
And any makeup tips that you can share with us?
That's trial and error, honestly. But again, your camera is your best friend. So take a look at yourself. How do you look? You can also do a test video of yourself. So for example, if you're on Zoom, do a recording, 10 or 30-second recording, and play it back and see, is your makeup, I think, too much is too much, and you want to avoid anything shimmery. And I learned that from trial and error. That's all I have for makeup. That's all I have.
Thank you, Nancy. I'm just curious, does the audience have any other questions? Because we are getting ready to go on to the second part of the presentation. Now, remember, as we go along, if you think of any questions that you want to ask, feel free to add them to the chat or our Q&A, and then we will come back and make sure we ask those questions of Nancy. All right, Nancy, over to you.
Great, thanks. So you have sorted out all of your technical elements, your background, your lighting, your makeup, your wardrobe, all of that. Now let's prepare your material. What material, you might be wondering? Well, if you're having interviews, you're going to want talking points. I have a colleague who was a Broadway press agent for many years, and he said something about interviews that I'll never forget. He said, answer the question you wish you'd been asked. Now, you're going to have that opportunity at some point to talk about things that you really want to talk about yourself. So it's important to have talking points. And if you're going to networking events, you need to have your elevator speech, or in some networking groups, they even call it a commercial, where you talk about your work and what you do. So here's some things about developing talking points. First, I'm going to advise you not to memorize, because trying to memorize something and learn it can just add to your stress. So here's what I do. I will jot down a few phrases, a few ideas, and then I'll just practice them out loud. Practice, practice, practice. And as I'm doing that, I'll listen to myself and I'll think, oh wait, maybe that's a better word. And so I'll change that word. And the other thing that the practicing does is that it makes those words come out of my mouth very naturally, because this is what we're going for. We want you to feel like yourself. We want you to feel like you can be yourself. Then when I'm finished, when my talking points are done, I get them down to bullet points, and usually those are just one word. And then once I get it that far down, I don't even need to look at them. Now, I want to go on to elevator speeches for a second, or introductions for these networking meetings. It's important to time them. Time yourself. So you need to have your talking points really succinct. Make sure there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. That way you can remember, you're telling a story, remember the story you're telling. And time yourself, because I've been in networking groups where they give you between 30 and 60 seconds, and they time you. And I have seen people get stopped for going over. And it's always appreciated when someone has been given a minute and they finish in 45 seconds. People always love that. Shorter is better. So I want to talk a little bit more about why it's so important to practice. Last summer, I was working with a classical concert pianist who occasionally has reason to do presentations. And she came to me with this one particular challenge. She said, you know, sometimes after a presentation, I'll think to myself, wait, I meant to say that. Why didn't I say that? And I said, well, how are you preparing? And she said, well, I run it through in my head when I'm in the shower. And I told her that is a perfectly fine place for ideas to percolate, but you need to practice it the way you're going to do it, out loud. You need to get it in your muscle memory. Now, this was a Grammy Award-winning classical pianist, and I had to tell her to practice. Yet, when I said muscle memory to her, she knew exactly what I was talking about. So it is important to practice for interviews and to practice for events. There is a really great resource that I learned about recently. It's an app. It's called Mr. Simon. It's free. You can sign up and practice interviews. You'll get asked a question. You'll have a chance to answer. You get to record it and play it back, and you can do it as many times as you want. And the reason I think this is a really important tool is that some people are requiring video interviews. So there isn't even a person. So it's good to get used to that aspect of things and looking into the camera and not knowing who's watching because you can't see anybody. So that's one really great resource. And I think if you don't have a job search buddy or an accountability partner, it's great to have one. I have an accountability partner. He's a fellow entrepreneur. We both have small businesses, and we meet every Friday, and we keep each other honest. And at the end of every meeting, we talk about what we're going to do, and I hear click, 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 he's typing it, and then I know I have to do those things. But I think it's really important to have that person who can keep you honest and who will give you support, and you give support back. So if you don't have someone like that, I highly suggest thinking about who you might like to partner with, because then you can help each other and you can practice together. So there's one more thing I want to talk about before I talk about what happens when you actually go on camera. And that is about performance anxiety, managing nerves, stage fright. And the reason I want to talk about it is that it's incredibly common. No one is immune. In fact, it happened to me not too long ago, and I will talk about that in a minute. But I want to talk about what's really happening here. I think most of us have heard the phrase fight, flight, or freeze. But what we're talking about is the brain is perceiving danger. Well, this makes perfect sense to me. You're about to go on a job interview, or you're about to present to a networking group. There's a lot at stake here. It's a challenge. It's really, really common for the brain to go off the rails. Reason goes out the window and the body responds. And the reason I want to talk about all this is that it can be managed if you have some tools in your toolkit to manage it. Because once those nerves hit, once you start feeling those symptoms, you have a window of opportunity. If you manage them right away, if you do something that works for you to manage it right away, it can be done. So I'm going to start with breathing. Oxygen is a natural tranquilizer. So I'd like us to do a breathing exercise together. If everyone would just take a second and get really comfortable in your chair and put your feet flat on the floor, let your hands just rest comfortably on your thighs. And we're going to do an exercise called 4-7-8 breathing. We're going to do it together. So what you're going to do is you're going to inhale through your nose on a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, and exhale for a count of 8. And don't worry about the counting. I will do that part for you. So everyone get ready. Great big deep breath. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, and when you exhale, put a little force behind it. I want to hear some noise. So everyone ready? Great big deep breath in. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Once more. Once. Inhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Thank you for doing that with me. That is an exercise that's really good to do several times during the day, 3 or 4 times during the day. Do it when you're not stressed, so that when you do feel those nerves, you're not going to do that whole exercise. You're just going to take a couple of deep breaths, but your body is accustomed to the deep breathing. And write yourself a note. Remind yourself to breathe. Put it somewhere where you're going to see it. Mine's going right on the laptop. So there's another tool I'm going to suggest for your toolbox, and it's called calming self-talk. So if you're worked up, you're feeling nerves, you're stressed about this event, talk yourself down the way you would talk to a friend. So calming words, reassuring words, whatever's going to soothe you and help you. If we were in person, if I were at the library with you, I would be handing everyone an index card right now. Now I can't do that. So please grab your notebook, piece of paper, Post-it, whatever you have. And I'd like you to take a second and write down a phrase, like either soothing words, encouraging words, something that you can say to yourself right before you turn on your camera or go on stage whenever those days come back. So don't think about it too much, right? What comes to mind? I will give you an example. A couple of years ago, I was coaching a sommelier, and she was competing for Best Master Sommelier in France. And this was very high stakes for her for a couple of reasons. It was a big event, an audience of 700, televised, and she'd been a finalist 3 times and was going back for a 4th time. So she wanted some coaching and particularly help with her managing her nerves. So I handed her the index card and I asked her to what I just asked you. Write down encouraging words, a phrase, something you can say to yourself right before you go on stage. So she wrote something down and then she asked me if I wanted to hear it. I said, sure. And she said, let's get this. And her whole face changed. Her whole demeanor changed. And I knew that that phrase was going to help her. And I'll share mine with you. You have been preparing your entire life for this. So have that phrase somewhere where you can keep it close when you need it. A couple of other things that can help manage nerves is maybe there's an item of clothing. We talked about clothing a second ago that you feel really confident in. It can't hurt. Or maybe you have a meaningful object either on your desk or in your pocket. All of these things help. Your preparation. If you're prepared, that's going to go a long way into keeping those nerves at bay. Control what you can. So certainly your preparation is something you can control. What else can you control? Well, certain things in your environment. I can't control whether my neighbors start using power tools overhead right now, but I can control whether or not you're going to hear my phone ring. You won't. So I did say earlier that I am not immune to performance anxiety and nerves, and I'll tell you what happened to me just a few months ago. I was actually in one of those networking meetings, and I was giving my spiel, my elevator speech, and halfway through, not before the meeting, halfway through, all of a sudden, I felt like I was running out of breath. My heart rate was going up, my heart was racing, and my palms were sweaty. So I did 4 things all at the same time. I put my feet flat on the floor because they weren't. I put my hands on my thighs to ground myself. I took a deep breath and I talked to myself. I didn't use my phrase because there wasn't time. I just talked to myself and said, Nancy, no one can tell. And guess what? I was fine after that because I nipped it in the bud. I dealt with managed those nerves right away. You can't wait and hope because hope is not going to help you. So that's why I encourage you to have these tools in your toolbox and find what works for you. These are just a few suggestions. So we have sorted out our technical elements. We've mastered our material. We have our nerves managed, or we're ready if they hit us by surprise. And now let's get in the right frame of mind before we go on camera. So again, get yourself comfortable in your chair. If you can, before you turn on your camera, give yourself just a little bit of quiet time, just a minute or two to get yourself in the right frame of mind. Take a few deep breaths. Find if there's tension in your body, if there's a way you can get rid of it. Sometimes I get tension in my neck and my shoulders, so I might do some head rolls or shoulder rolls, just stretch everything out. Get your body as physically relaxed as you can. And now I'm going to do a visualization exercise with you that's really great to do right before you go on camera. So put your feet flat on the floor, get comfortable in your chair, let your hands rest on your thighs, and you can close your eyes if it helps because this is a visual exercise. I want you to imagine that there's a string attached to the top of your head, just a white cotton string, and it is actually attached to the middle of the top of your head. And that string is very, very gently pulling your head up toward the ceiling. Not your shoulders. Your shoulders are staying down. Your shoulders are nice and relaxed. It's just the top of your head being very, very gently lifted up toward the ceiling. Think of it as reverse gravity. Very, very gentle. All of your energy is being directed up. Now open your eyes. You should see that your energy is great and your posture is great. Now, you don't necessarily need to go through this whole exercise before you go on camera, but you can take a little shortcut and just remind yourself, direct up. And again, your energy is going to be great and your posture is going to be great. All right, so our event has begun and we've already talked about training ourselves to look at the camera. It's really, really important. Now there's a silver lining here in this world of virtual events and meetings. When you look at the camera, every single person in that meeting feels like you're looking directly at them. And so that's a great way to engage your audience with that eye contact. So you want to have your eye on the camera most of the time. Now, sometimes it can be a little bit challenging. Right now, this is very easy for me. I can see Mariella in my peripheral vision. But say you go into one of these networking meetings, you don't know anyone, find the friendliest space. Maybe at that beginning of the meeting when everybody's chit-chatting, find that friendly face. And when it's your turn to speak, you talk to them. You picture them, or you put them somewhere in your peripheral vision so you can see them. But hold on to that friendly face. When I taught public speaking at a university, I used to tell my students, there's always going to be someone, they're probably sitting in the back, maybe they're scowling with no interest in what you have to say. Don't give your energy to that person. You focus on the person who's leaning forward in their seat, eager to hear what you have to say, and you focus on them. Not that you eyeball them the whole time, but you keep them in your peripheral vision and you take your energy from them. We've talked a little bit about videos, and sometimes you cannot see your audience. So that's really challenging. How do you have the heart to talk into that black hole that is your laptop camera? Well, I'm going to give you a little acting technique, and it's called substitution. So look into the camera and you picture the person in your life who's sitting forward in their seat when you're talking, your biggest fan. You look into the camera and you picture them in your mind's eye, and your energy is going to be great. So I've talked about a lot of different things that I'm asking you to do, and it might sound like a lot. What is all this going to get me? This is so much to consider. Well, I'll tell you, it is going to make you more confident. And when you're confident, you are free to be your most authentic self. And that's all we want. I just want to leave you with one more thought. Be kind to yourself. What you're doing is challenging and can be really stressful. So remember to be kind to yourself. I would love to hear more questions.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That was, you gave some wonderful, wonderful tips, and I really do appreciate that. And yes, let's turn it over to the audience. Are there any questions or comments for Nancy? Again, feel free to raise your hand, use the chat or the Q&A if you'd like. Or would anyone like to perhaps share how you manage your nerves? I know I'm a big music fan myself, and what really gets me going, I love classical music, especially Mozart, because I feel his music is full of energy, and all of these like little nuances in the notes and everything, and that really gets me going. So sometimes when I'm getting ready to present something or go in front of an audience, I do actually do the breathing techniques that really calms me, which I learned many, many years ago when I was raising my 3 children. That would really ground me. But then I would always go back to listening to Mozart, and his music, just a couple of bars, to kind of get me going, and that really helps. So.
Well, that's really important, is finding out what works best for you. I mean, if you were to go backstage and see actors getting ready, say an hour before the performance, everybody's doing something different.
Yeah.
Somebody's stretching, somebody's vocalizing, somebody's in a quiet corner, somebody's running through all of their lines. Everyone's going to do something different. So I just gave a couple of examples of what works for me, and the breathing is really, I would say, absolutely try to incorporate that. Like I said, it's a natural tranquilizer, oxygen.
Absolutely, absolutely. I also want to remind the audience, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but Nancy will be offering a complimentary 30-minute coaching session to all who attended today's career development workshop, and she will also include a PDF document summarizing all of today's main points. So if you are interested, please feel free to type in your email in the chat, or you can contact me directly, and I will be happy to forward that information over to Nancy and connect you two. Any questions or comments? Oh, yes. Let's see, let's see, Alina, great information. I learned a lot of great tips. Thank you so much. Thank you, Alina.
Thank you.
And I am going to quickly share my screen. Wait, hold on, bear with me 1 second. I want to remind everyone that our library, the Long Branch Public Library, is offering a new service. It's called Job Search to Go. And basically, it is a career packet catered to your specific needs. For instance, if you need tips on how to search for jobs, or if you're looking for any specific industry, please reach out to our library. We will comprise a packet specifically for your needs, and we'll also include some wonderful job search tips and other goodies. So thank you so much for that. If you have any questions or comments, again, feel free to contact me. You have it on my screen. You have my email address. You can also call the library. I'll be more than happy to get back with you. And that is pretty much it for us. From Maria, thank you, Nancy. Good tip about an accountability partner. Wonderful.
I can't say enough. Yeah, go get one.
And we also have from James, I've used a glass of water during a Zoom interview to keep me calm.
Yeah. Oh, we can't say enough about hydration, but yes, take it, because that also gives you a second, right? Because you also have time. You can sneak in a deep breath or a breath, or it gives you time to think. So yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you got a lot out of Nancy's presentation. I know, I think it was wonderful. Oh, Carla is requesting, would you please put your email on the screen again? Oh, absolutely, Carla. Hold on, let me just bear with me while I get to that screen. There you go. Okay, and again, you can call the library, and I will be more than happy to get back with you. I will forward you information regarding the summarization of today's main points, as well as connect you with Nancy if you are interested in that free 30-minute coaching session. I know I'm going to be reaching out to Nancy as soon as we're done. So thank you so much for that. All right, guys. Thank you once again, and I look forward to seeing all of you at next month. So thanks once again.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, guys.
Bye.